Hi, welcome to another episode of Tea with Tara. I am joined today by a very special guest, Rosanne Sorrentino. You know her from the movie Annie, but did you also know that she played Annie on the stage? And we're going to hear all about that and about her stand-up comedian. She is a stand-up comedian, rather. We're going to hear all about that because she's also a writer, because you have to write your own comedy. So we're going to learn all about that. Rosanne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to begin with your career as an actress. How did you begin as an actress?
It was really kind of a weird beginning. I saw the play Annie. Well, I found out about it. My mom bought me the record. I fell in love with it. She took me to see the show on Broadway, and I was just like bound and determined I wanted to be Annie. And I had zero experience, but I said, I want to be Annie. And so, kind of just to shut me up, my mom had me make a recording of me singing Tomorrow over Andrea McCardle.
Oh,
And
wow.
she got it to a friend who knew someone who knew someone. Long story short, um, we got a call. They wanted me to audition. And I went in and I auditioned and I got the part. So it was kind of a real fluke.
So you had never had acting lessons at all?
No, no acting, no singing, barely any dancing. If you ask Martin Charnin, he told me that I was the worst dancer he'd ever seen.
And what was that experience like playing Annie on the stage?
Um, it was to this day still my favorite experience. It was just um, energizing and exciting, and I couldn't believe that I got to do this every single night for a year and a half.
Wow. And had you read the comic strip at all?
No, I hadn't. I hadn't. I was 10 when I got the part. So all I knew about Annie was the play. And then as I was doing it, I learned that there was a comic strip that it was based off of, and all this other stuff. But I just loved the music and I loved the story, and I was just in love with everything about it.
So one of the things that I've always wanted when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress so badly, but I can't act. I can't do any of that. So I loved writing as much. But can you tell me what it's like to be a child actress?
Well, my experience was very positive, very healthy, I think. My mom was with me for the entire tour. And although, I did a lot of things that normal 11-year-olds don't normally do, um, by performing every night and then, going down to the piano bar in the hotel and singing for another couple of hours and things like that. It was an incredible experience. And I met so many people and people that I still keep in touch with today. And I met famous people, presidents, governors. It was an incredible experience. And so then when I transitioned over to the film, it was very different from live theater, obviously, but still a really, really great experience. And the only reason I stopped was at the time my parents were getting divorced. My mom was working. It was hard for me to get into the city to audition. And I was at an age where I was too old to play young, too young to play old. And I said, I think I'm just going to go to high school and I'll revisit this after high school. And because it was very different back then than it is now. A kid gets a commercial or a TV show, and because of social media and all that, they can almost catapult right to stardom. Where when I was doing it, you had to try out and you had to go in the city and you had to, just keep trying. And so I knew that I wanted to grow up. I wanted to have a family. And I don't think in my mindset at that time that acting and pursuing that was going to give me everything that I wanted.
Right.
So I made the decision to just go to high school and then go
So
to college.
if you had the opportunity, would you do it all again the same way?
That's an interesting question. I would definitely do it all again. I don't know that I think I might, if I know then what I know now, I might try a little harder as I grew up because it truly is where I am happiest. Um, I enjoy performing and making people happy, and whether that's, they enjoy my singing or they laugh at my comedy. I am, even with my students, if you can make a room full of middle schoolers laugh,
Right.
then you're doing okay.
Yeah.
So I just always really, I'm a performer, and I love that aspect. So I probably would try a little harder.
Do you think it's harder nowadays to be a child actress than it was when you were starting out?
I think there are more opportunities for kids, but I think, it's very different. I did 8 shows a week for a year and a half at the age of 10 to 12. I believe now, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe now that kids that age, they have to split the role. And I know me, and that would not have gone over well with me. I wanted the role. I wanted to do the 8 shows a week. So I mean, I think there are some parts of it that are easier, and then some parts that are just more difficult. There's probably a lot more competition, a lot more, there are a lot more kids out there vying for parts. So
So in 1982, oh, by the way, is there any footage of you as Annie on the stage?
very little, very little. I have some CDs that were recorded from news programs. So that, on a news program, they would show the little clip singing and then they would cut to the interview. But there's no, I wish there was like video. I wish they videoed at least one show so I would have that, but I don't.
So in 1982, when they decided to make the movie Annie, which was one of my favorite movies, and I loved everybody in that movie. I thought everyone was phenomenal. How did you get the part of Pepper, and did you try out for other roles?
So while I was touring, the casting director, Garrison True, saw me and really loved me for the role of Annie. But by the time I was finished with the tour, I was too tall, which is the only time that's ever happened in my life because I'm 4'11 3/4.
Oh,
So
me too.
go
I'm
figure.
4'11.
And I was developing, as a young preteen girl would. So I was too old for the role of Annie, but he wanted me to audition for another role and suggested Pepper. So I did. I auditioned for the role of Pepper, and I believe I was the only person in the movie who had also been in the play, like as a major role. I think Aileen was a swing understudy, but I was the only one who had an actual role in the play.
So were you aware when you were on the set of all the star power that you were surrounded by with Carol
Oh,
Burnett and Tim Curry?
100%. Watched the Carol Burnett show all the time. Loved it. Just obsessed over it. Couldn't even believe that I was getting to work with her, let alone meet her. And she was absolutely just a gem of a person and so much fun to work with. I mean, she hung out with the kids. She talked to us. She was just phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal.
She seems like such a down-to-earth person and so
Oh,
calm.
she really is. She's so, I was very sick when we were filming You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. I had 104 temperature. And so in between, when they were changing cameras or whatever they were doing, they wanted a place for me to rest. And there were no available trailers. So Carol gave up her trailer so
Oh,
that I could go and rest. And she even came in and did like the classic mommy thing, where she puts the lips to the forehead to see if you're still warm. And she gave me an autographed picture, and she was just amazing, really amazing.
And you didn't have many scenes with a lot of the others, right? With Albert Finney or Anne Reinking.
Not really. I had a couple of scenes with Albert Finney, who was super nice. I mean, we would see him in the makeup area getting his makeup, and we would go over and talk to him, and he would tell us funny stories and riddles and poems and things, and he was fantastic. And I did have a scene with Bernadette Peters and Tim Curry when they catch us trying to escape. But other than that, not. And Jeffrey Holder, who was great. He was a lot of fun with the kids.
So how different was doing the movie as opposed to the play?
It was very different because you filmed it, we filmed, we didn't film it in sequence. So, you're doing the end, then you're doing the middle, then you go back to the end, then you're doing the beginning, you're doing, and you don't get to see it progress from one scene to the next. You just know what you're doing. I loved with the play, watching from the wings when I wasn't on and hearing the audience laugh and watching my fellow castmates perform and, making fun of them if they made a mistake when they came backstage or something. So they're two incredibly different experiences, and I loved each one of them for very different reasons.
Did you like how the movie ended with the 4th of July, or did you prefer the Christmas scene?
I did not love that. I did not understand, other than for Hollywood purposes, why they changed it. And I still feel like you could have made an amazing, spectacular Christmas
Right.
ending. I just feel like, Christmas is right before the new year, the new beginnings. People make their resolutions, and there was just something really special in the play about that whole part. So I didn't love it. I've grown to kind of like it, but I wouldn't have done it personally.
One of the scenes that, well, it was funny to the audience, but probably not funny to you, maybe. But when you're sitting in the bathroom and Molly hits you in the face with the mop, I always wondered because I was 6 years old when the movie came out, so I took it literally, like, oh my God, that poor girl, she just got whacked in the face. How do you film a scene like that without actually getting that mop, or did you get it in the face?
No, you actually get whacked in the face.
Oh my God.
Several times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they would do the scene. She'd whack me in the face. Then I'd change my costume, put on a dry costume. They would dry the other costume. Then we would do it again. Then I would put on the dry costume. They would dry the other costume. And Molly, or Tony Ann, who played Molly, she was very afraid to hit me with the mop.
Yeah.
And I remember just going, just hit me with the mop. You're not going to hurt me. It was a big sloppy wet mop. I didn't care. And she finally did. And it was funny, but yeah, they hit you.
What are some of your favorite memories from the movie? Do you have any specific memories that you?
Well, I really loved being on the set. And I think ever since I was a little kid, even, I've always preferred hanging around with older kids or adults. So I really took to the dance captains, who were the assistants to the choreographers. And they would always tease me, and we would, make fun of each other and just have a good time. And I noticed when we were on set that everybody had a director's chair, except for the orphans. And I said, we do the most sitting around. Why don't we have a chair?
Right.
And so I sort of fought for and lobbied for the orphans to get a chair.
Oh,
so
good
they
for you.
finally got all of us chairs. And I was so excited to come in and sit in my chair. And I come in and my chair isn't there. And I'm looking around like, where's my chair? And I see the two dance captains laughing. I remember his name. His name was Denny. I can't remember her name. But and they look up, and I look up at the rafters, and my chair is hanging from from the rafters. So I was like, you guys, come on, give me my chair. So they put the chair down. Then the next day I come in, no chair again. And I look, and there's a toilet bowl with my name on it. So they had a lot of fun giving me a hard time about the chair. So those are a lot of fun things. And then I guess my most favorite memory had nothing to do with actually filming. I was absolutely in love with Philip McKeon, who played Tommy on Alice.
Right.
I was in love with him. And we were in the same studio. So we weren't far from where they filmed Alice. And I wanted to meet him. And of course, the same dance captains were like, oh, Philip McKeon, heard you want to meet him and he's coming over today. Ha ha ha. And they'd laugh. And I'd be like, that's so mean. How do you do that to a 12-year-old girl? So one day they said, Philip McKeon is here. And I went, yeah, okay. And all of a sudden there was Philip McKeon with a bouquet of flowers. And I was just...
some of the amazing perks, right?
Oh my God, it was so great. And then I got tickets to see them film the show that night.
Oh, amazing.
So I was in the live studio audience when they filmed Alice. And I don't remember which episode it was because I was just fixed on Philip McKeon, just fixed on him. And I actually, before he passed away, became friends with him on Facebook. And, which is very easy to do. You can pretty much be friends with anybody if you aren't a creep. And I sent him the picture of the two of us and just was like, you probably don't remember this, but you made my year. And I was such a huge fan and I had such a huge crush on you. So it was kind of neat. Yeah. To have that experience. And it was definitely like a little perk thing, I was like, this just doesn't happen to everybody, Yeah,
I was very sad about him passing away.
Yes, it was.
Now I know that you go on tour, especially now. Can you believe it's been 40 years since Annie? I mean, I can't believe that. I mean, I wasn't even in it. I still can't believe it.
No, but not at all, because 40 years. I don't feel like it 40 years older. That's for sure.
You don't look it. I'll tell you that. Now I know you see Aileen Quinn and Tony Ann Gasandi, and you guys go to meet and greets. That's where I actually met you in September for the Revolution Superfest, and you were kind enough to sign my Annie album. Do you ever see any of the other orphans, the actresses who played Duffy or Tessie or any of those girls?
We don't. We don't see them, and they're kind of not really on social media. I haven't been able to find them. Some of them prefer it that way. I've heard through the kind of the grapevine that they prefer to not be on any sort of social media platform. I would love to see them all again now as grown women and hear about their journeys as, they navigated leaving show business, because I don't really think any of them other than Aileen ever pursued it in the professional way that Aileen has tried to pursue it. So, I would love to see them. I think that would be such a neat thing to say 40 years later, here are all the orphans again.
Yeah, that would be an amazing reunion. So when filming ended and the movie was out in the theaters, what was life like after that for you? I mean, how did your friends and classmates treat you? Now you're on the big screen and you're a movie star. How does that go over with your peers?
It was a little tough at first. People made a lot of judgments about me, thinking that I thought I was all that. And I really just wanted to come home and go to school and go to parties and be in the plays. And so I would say the first 6 months were kind of weird because, I grew up in a theater world. So I didn't get the music that they were listening to because it wasn't music that I was listening to. And, I missed a lot of the the nuances of just going to school and kind of learning how to be. So I kind of came back and was just like, hey guys, and everybody's like, hey. And I thought we were all just going to be best friends again, you know?
Yeah.
So that was hard. And I had to kind of find my way a little bit. But I did. And I had so much fun in high school. I had a great time. I was in all the plays, and I even did a year as a cheerleader, you know, so it all worked out. But it was a little tricky. And then, you know, to boot, my parents were going through a divorce. So that always adds another layer of difficulty onto things.
Right. So how did you finally decide to pursue, or when did you decide to pursue comedy?
Comedy is always something that I wanted to try. And I've always been a huge fan of comedy and comedians. And it wasn't until my daughter was in college, my oldest daughter, Bridget, and she's an occupational therapist. So she went to school for like medicine, but got involved with this improv group at college. And she started doing this improv. And I went to see her a few times, and she was great. And then she sent me a video that one night the improv group decided to do some impromptu stand up. And she was just absolutely hilarious. And I was like, she's so good. So when she came home from college, I said, I was looking up like comedy college. And I said, do you want to try it? And she said, sure. How much is it? I said, it's $250. She goes, I don't have that kind of money. I said, I'll pay for it. She went, I'm in. So we took this class every Tuesday for about 8 weeks. And it was nice because it was something we were doing together. And we didn't know what to expect at the final, you know, graduation show where you get up on a stage and now you tell these jokes that you've written. And we did it, and we did well. And we kind of came off the stage and looked at each other and went, uh-oh, this is fun. And that's sort of how it started. And I just, you know, quickly started accepting friend requests from different comedians and doing I still do bringer shows, but doing bringer shows where you have to bring people to the show in order to be able to perform. And it's just fun. It's just such a blast to get up and talk to people and make them laugh.
So being a stand-up comedian, you also are a writer because you have to write your own material. So how do you prepare when you're writing the content of a show? Where do your ideas come from?
You know, most of my comedy all of my comedy is based on my real life. And I could tell you a story. We are having a cup of coffee and I could tell you a story and it might be funny, but to get that to translate to an audience, I never realized that there was such a technique to it, and how important word choice was, and how important word order was, because you don't want to say the funny part at the beginning. You know, you want to end with the punchline so that then the laughter doesn't drown out the rest. So all of those things have been a big learning experience for me. And I don't even claim to be proficient, but I'm getting better over time, and I'm working towards getting better. And I'm always tweaking and changing and trying to find a different word or a different way to set up a joke. So, so it's very challenging in that respect. It's not like just sitting down and writing your thoughts and your feelings. It's got to be crafted in a way that is going to make people laugh.
Do you ever get writer's block when you're writing? Do you ever get stuck with?
All the time. Like, I think I have a funny premise and I write it down and then I read it back and I'm like, well, that's not funny. How can I fix that? And it honestly, to be honest with you, I will wake up in the middle of the night and think of something and then pick up my phone and like type it into my notes and then look at it the next day and say, all right, there might be something there.
Yeah, I
And a
think
lot of that stuff is still sitting, waiting for me because I have about 15 minutes worth of material right now. And I've been doing comedy for about 3 years. So I'm pretty happy about that. But and it has changed and it has grown and been reshaped. It's the same basic material, but I've added on and I've changed and I like to think maybe evolved a little bit in it. My writing has gotten a little bit more mature, so to speak. But I have a lot of stuff that I still want to work on. And so I'm retiring in June from my job. So my goal is to really work on really writing more,
well,
writing
see,
every day. That's my
you,
goal.
you're a true writer at heart. You get the ideas at night and you reach right for the phone or a pen and paper. I keep a pen and paper by my bed because one of my favorite writers, Willa Cather, she once said, with ideas, either use them or lose them, because once they're out of your mind, you're never going to remember exactly how it was. So write it down as soon as you can.
It's true. And I learned that the hard way because I thought of something really funny and I didn't write it down. I'm like, oh, that was funny. I'll remember that.
And you didn't.
Didn't remember it. Can't remember it.
Do you ever worry about offending anybody with comedy? Or do you just
Yes,
think, do you keep
I
that?
do. I do because I don't ever want to be that person that gets the cheap laugh
Right.
at the expense of someone else. Because life is funny enough. Things that have happened to me, things that I've experienced, even just being a mom, dating, going through a divorce myself, there's enough funny in that. I don't want to, I don't ever want to offend anybody because, they're not there for my political views. They're not there to hear about my stance on any issues. People are paying money. They want to laugh.
Right.
I want to make them laugh. And so I try to pick light topics that people can relate to, that they understand, and work that into a funny routine.
Do you ever, okay, so we talked about writer's block. Do you ever, do you have a special writing routine that you use? Like for me, I go to a cafe. Do you have to go anywhere or be anywhere to
I'm
write?
usually I sit on my couch and I get the notebook because I am old school in that respect. I like to do longhand. I like to write it out, and I will eventually type it out so that it's in my phone and I'm not going to comedy clubs with 12 notebooks. But I will write it out several times because it also helps with remembering it and remembering the order that I put it in. But I'm a former English teacher,
Oh,
so I'm a fan of longhand.
yeah, me too. I was an English major and creative
There you
writing
go.
major.
So
Um, yeah. So have you ever written a book or have you ever thought about writing a book?
I actually wrote a children's book. Um, I never tried to publish it. It is on my list of things to do. I wrote it many years ago when my sister, her first child was born and got bacterial meningitis and then passed away just before her second birthday. And it was a very, very sad time in our family. And I was in the passenger seat of a car one day right after Christmas, and we were passing a Christmas tree farm. And I looked at all of the Christmas trees that didn't get bought. And I was like, oh, how sad, you know? And then this idea just came to me, and I wrote this children's book about a Christmas tree that is, growing out in the fields and can't wait to be picked. And last minute is chosen. And when the farmer chops him at the farm to open him up, he chops off a whole back part of him, so he's not a perfect Christmas tree anymore. And then it goes to this family who has 3 children who one of the children is in the hospital on Christmas Eve, and the sisters won't do anything for Christmas until the sister can do it. So by the time they get to the Christmas tree farm, the only tree really left is the not perfect tree.
Oh, that sounds really great.
And that's the one that the sister who is ill wants, you know? And so the characters were my two daughters and my niece, Emma. And it's this nice little story about how Casey gets his wish. Casey was the tree, gets his wish, and is a Christmas tree for a family.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You really should try to get that published, though.
I'm definitely going to do that. And
So,
it was nice because I had an art teacher friend of mine illustrate it. So the whole idea behind it was I gave it to my sister for Christmas.
oh, wow, that's so nice.
And so
You sound
that's
like you are a
really
writer
planned.
at heart. With all the many hats that you wear, actress, teacher, principal, you're also a writer, comedian. Now, do you have any advice? We have about, I think, 6 minutes. Do you have any advice for anyone going into show business or comedy?
My advice would be, if that is something that you really want to do, you have to put your whole heart and being into it. And you have to work at it. And you can't expect that it's just going to come like that. And that's coming from somebody where it kind of just like that happened for me. And maybe that was a good thing then, but when I look back on it now, I sort of expected it to always happen like that, and it doesn't. But I would say if it's something that you really feel strongly about, you know, you don't want to leave this life with regrets.
Right.
You want to know that you did all of the things that you wanted to do, or at least tried. So, I mean, I can say with a pretty good degree of certainty that I don't have any regrets. Do I wish I'd done some things different? A little bit, but no regrets. I have two beautiful daughters. I am on the final leg of a really wonderful career, and life is good, and I'm telling jokes, and I'm making people laugh, and that's good.
That's the happiness that really matters.
It is.
Right.
I don't think I've ever really been as happy in my life as I am probably this year.
Wow. So I wish you so much continued success, and thank you so much for being part of Tea with Tara. It was so nice having you on.
It was my pleasure. It was very nice.
Thank you so much. Rosanne Sorrentino, actress, singer, teacher, writer, comedian. She does it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara.